minute or two behind. I apologize for the delay. Thank you so much for everybody that took time out of your busy schedules to be here today, and for those of you that weren't able to be here but that are watching online, we appreciate you tuning in as well. We are going to go ahead and call today's regular commission meeting to order. We are very blessed to have Pastor Fredericks with us from J First Baptist Church. If you will honor me with rising with us, he's going to lead us in an invocation, and then we'll have Commissioner Salter lead us in the pledge. Good morning, Pastor.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. First, I'm going to ask if any of my fellow commissioners have any reason not to approve the minutes from the March 28th regular meeting or the March 14th commission regular meeting. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and approve those minutes. Next is approval of the agenda. I'll start to my right. Do we have any changes or modifications we need to make to the agenda today?
No changes, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Good morning. No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, under economic development, the United Way properties has been removed from the agenda.
I believe it. We've still got it on the agenda. I think we're just staff.
It's been removed.
Yeah, there's no action recommended by staff. There were a lot of questions on Monday. Shannon and I are still working on some of those issues. I didn't want to pull it from the agenda. I wanted to brief you that there's no staff recommendation, no staff recommended action at this point, and therefore we don't need to take any action and could be removed from the agenda with no effect.
Okay, so we'll just give confirmation to the public we're not moving forward with spending any funds
Correct.
on it right now.
Correct.
Thank you. All right. All right, Mr. Lynch.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Staff.
Mr. Chairman, I would point out on the regular agenda, admin committee number 3 is a surplus property item that came to us from the clerk's office. This is a server the property appraiser needs to trade in to upgrade some equipment, so the board needs to approve that disposal and that trade-in.
All right, thank you.
No changes.
James? No? Stephen, Roger? All right. Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and approve the agenda with those two changes. And first, we have Ken with us here today. He's with FACT, Florida Association of Counties Trust, and I believe he's going to come forward now with us. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you. I'm Ken Monahan with the Florida Association of Counties Trust, or FACT. A lot of you may know about the program, but kind of maybe just a little bit of history. FACT was started in 1989. It's a risk pool sharing program that allows counties to pool their funds to pay claims. We provide the general liability, public officials, E&O, and employment practices coverage for the county. And the county's been with our program since 1995, so it's been quite a while and been a great relationship with the program. As you know, the program is owned and managed by the member counties. We have an 11-member board made up of the commissioners and administrators from the member counties, and currently Commissioner Peter Peach is on our board, and we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and he was there, and it was great. I was glad to have him there and part of the program. It's really good to have him there representing the county. We're an enterprise program for the Florida Association of Counties. We're also a large supporter of the Small County Coalition. So not only providing coverage and insurance for the counties, we're there to help support other issues that affect counties through the program. And it's really worked out well with our relationship with FAC. FAC is also the administrator of the program, and it's worked out really well over the last couple of years. So we really thank the county being a part of the program. As mentioned, we started in 1989. It's our 30th year anniversary, and our board wanted to show appreciation to all of our member counties, and I have a plaque that I'd like to just present to the board, just to showing appreciation for being a part of the program, being a member of the program, and supporting it for all these years. And if I could just present that to the board and get a picture with you, if I could do that as well.
Absolutely, Ken. You can come up here.
And just mention, it has been great working with the county. It's really been good staff. We have really good people to work with. It's been great. But anything we can do for you at any time in the future, just let us know.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming to visit. All right. Before we approve the consent agenda, I believe Dan wanted to make a brief introduction here. We've had an opportunity to have a couple new folks start with the county. And
We don't normally introduce all the new employees. These are two key positions. We hired Janelle McVeigh. She'll come forward. Janelle comes to us from Okaloosa County. She's our new HR director. And so as a director, you'll be interacting with her as a board, and I wanted you to put a face with the name. And the second recent hire is Tiffany Tingstrom. She comes to us to help try and fill Michelle Parker's shoes. She's going to work directly in administration, and we'll be working with you on your calendar, so I thought it was important that we introduce her, and she will also be interfacing with the public, and so it's good for the public to see Tiffany, who's joining the team in administration. So just wanted to introduce them quickly.
thank y'all so much for joining the team, and we look forward to working with you. Please let Dan know if you have any problems.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I will ask if there are any members of the public or any commissioners that would have any item on the consent agenda that they would wish to pull from the consent agenda before we pass the consent agenda. All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and approve the consent agenda in its entirety. Next, moving to the regular agenda, we confirm that there's no action moving forward on the one item there listed under Economic Development. Under Administrative Committee, item number 1 is the Discovery Center Design and MYIP revision. Recommended authorization to begin the MYIP revision process with the 4 bullet points here that were outlined. Do we have any members of the public here to speak on this today? All right, good morning, Charlie.
Hello, Charlene Morrow, 2786 Grand Bay Court, Navarre. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. While it was disappointing that you are not able to support further development of the Discovery Center this week, we remain committed in our efforts to bring this concept forward. The priorities that were identified for improving water quality conditions in the region are important and place available restore funds toward that cause. Meanwhile, we ask that the county will allow minor modifications of the existing contract for planning and design of the Discovery Center as specified in the existing Restore multi-year implementation plan, so that a conceptual set of architectural schematics, Detailed cost estimates and building requirements are made available for our efforts to bring partnerships and sponsors on board. Our community highly supports the Discovery Center concept and goals. We request that the county honor the MOU and site location. Santa Rosa County agreed to commit a site as the future location of the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. This commitment is for a period of 5 years while Marine Edge seeks construction funding for the project. If construction funding is not obtained within the 5-year period, the Board of County Commissioners, as stated in the MOU, may choose to reevaluate the location or commitment. It is the clear intention of Northwest Florida Marine Edge to share in the fiscal responsibility for this project, acquire project partners, and provide the additional capital fundraising to achieve a matching goal of $3.5 million. In addition, in order to protect both parties' interest, an additional $2 million endowment will be raised. That's something that was not brought up at Monday's meeting. We look forward to coming back in front of you again to demonstrate our commitment for this effort and to ask you to continue as your partner. What you didn't have the chance to hear on Tuesday were representatives from the University of West Florida and the Institute of Human and Machine Cognition who came to express their support for the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. You did have this opportunity to hear from Fabian Cousteau, who is already on board with this project. Although some may see this as a feel-good project, it has the opportunity to reach hundreds of thousands of individuals through hands-on experiences, research findings, and telepresence opportunities. The Discovery Center is seen by TDO as in market analysis as a major economic benefit for Santa Rosa County. It creates jobs, enhances tourism, promotes environmental restoration and protection, and also adds to community resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming this morning. And do we have anybody else here to speak? Anybody else here to speak on the Discovery item? Yeah, good morning. Yeah, no, come forward. Just remember name and address for the record. Good to see you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Angela Campbell, 7146 Brinkley Street. Okay. Firstly, I applaud the Commission for prioritizing water quality. Clean waterways are critical. Addressing their pollution is long overdue, and many would ask, now that we have this huge opportunity for generational change, why we've got to the position of what I think Commissioner Cole said on Monday, having to address the need for need-to-haves rather than want-to-haves. That being said, I'm sure you'll join me in recognizing how blessed we are as a county to have Charlene's passion and her vision, and what an asset the proposed Discovery Center would be for all citizens and visitors. My question is, with the new governor's $1 billion pledge to address clean waterways, before we dismiss the Discovery Center, which has already been cited to bring tremendous economic, educational, and environmental benefits to the entire county, has every opportunity for state funding for the 2 wastewater projects been fully explored, and how hard are their numbers? If future revisions in the multi-year implication plan are possible, could we consider completing the initial Discovery Center design concept, thus allowing their capital fundraising campaign to succeed? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Angela. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, full disclosure, I'm on the board of the Marine Science Station. Fully support Charlene's statements. I understand completely the need to, Tony Alexander, 6555 Kempton Street, Navarre, Florida. Sorry. Fully understand the need to prioritize and place these water quality projects ahead of the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. I would encourage each of you to remember that this project scored exceptionally high in Restore Council meetings. I would ask that you consider supporting the MOU as it's written. And most importantly, I want to recognize and make sure the county recognizes the work that Erica did to get us to where we are now. She was the go-between with our organization and Treasury, and she put countless hours into getting us to where we are now. So we'd be remiss in not recognizing Erica for her work. So appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, and I appreciate you recognizing Erica's hard work on this. She has definitely put some painstaking hours in. Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Steve Shippey. I'm here as a member of the Board of Directors of Marine Edge, and that addresses 8638 Blue Heron Court, Navarre Beach. The Gulf Coast Discovery Center is a highly ranked proposal that touches many of the eligibility categories of the Restore Act and was approved easily in the current multi-year plan. And we understand the need to tackle immediate priorities for infrastructure repairs that may outweigh the benefits of the Discovery Center at this time. But we are still committed to bring our vision to completion. In a few days, we're going to mark the 9th anniversary of the Deepwater Horizon event. And today, we have an opportunity to take another step forward toward recovering what was lost in that environmental and economic catastrophe. We ask you to please allow the current MYIP allocation of $265,000 for the Discovery Center planning to complete so that the architect's revised final deliverables are available for our much-needed edge in a capital campaign for future construction. The Discovery Center project touches on most of the eligible categories under Restore and will create jobs, ecotourism, environmental awareness, promotion of seafood, and responsible fisheries management. Our detailed business plan demonstrates a market demand supporting a new ecotourism destination on Navarre Beach. Once open for visitors, we conservatively project annual revenues of $1.47 million and expect to operate sustainably, generating growth of up to 8% per year, hosting over 85,000 guests annually comprised of students, local residents, and out-of-town visitors. The 2018 Haas Center study on tourism impacts on Santa Rosa County showed that the majority of our visitors stay in lodging at Navarre, and that over 75% were return guests that have been here 5 times or more over the years. According to the Tourism Development Office, more than 80% of visitor questions are related to wildlife and nature. Today, there are limited ecotour destinations for visitors to enjoy in the Navarre area. Most of them drive out of Navarre to seek attractions in neighboring communities. But the TDO director stated to us, anything to do with nature, education, and animals is of great interest. The Discovery Center would be the #2 attraction in Santa Rosa County, second only to the beach. We realize the pressing need to take steps now to fix the effluent issues in our waterways, and we applaud your efforts towards this goal. At the same time, we will strive for fundraising that will bring the Discovery Center to fruition. Our mission includes being able to provide hands-on education of participants to help eliminate the things that contribute to pollution and environmental degradation. A primary feature of the Discovery Center is that it will provide a maximum benefit to all of the citizens of Santa Rosa County, not just those that live on Navarre Beach. Modifying the MYIP to add new infrastructure components will take time, while the Discovery Center Phase 1 planning and design has already been approved and funded. Today, we simply request this funding for planning to go to completion. Thank you for your consideration of our request and for your continued support.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else here to speak on this issue from the public? All right. Do we have any commissioners that would like to speak on this issue? To the staff. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, Erica, please. And I still get, as many years as we've been doing this, I guess, still get confused on one pot to the other pot, and, you know, TRIUMPH funds versus BP funding and everything else. So right now we have obligated funding at a point of how many dollars?
$265,000.
Okay, that's what's spent for what we have to date.
We have obligated with a grant agreement $265,000 for planning and design. We have spent approximately $100,000 of that so far.
Okay, and those funds come from where?
Restore Pot 1, which is the direct component.
Okay. If we agree with going to completion on the plans, even though they would go to on the shelf, we would be able to, that would satisfy the requirements for that component, and we would not be obligated to refund anything, or do we have to see this project through to be able to retain that funding?
My understanding of the direction from the board on Monday was to request a modification of deliverables, which would allow the programming document to be the final deliverable for the grant agreement. In that case, if Treasury were to approve that, we would not have to pay back any money. The grant would just change from the $265 for planning and permitting and construction documents to a $100,000 grant for programming.
Okay, but if we see it through to the
Yes, sir.
275 approximately, and don't immediately start construction or head that direction,
There's no issue with that as far as Treasury is concerned.
right? So basically, we're looking at an additional, either stopping where we're at now, or going to the additional about $175,000 that's already coming from Triumph funding.
From Restore funding.
Restore funding.
And just
See
to,
what I mean?
and just to clarify, I think today we have a new third option before us, if that hasn't been made clear. And Charlene or Caldwell, correct me if I misstate anything. Monday, we discussed the option of funding full design, which means meeting the deliverables of the current executed grant agreement. The actual cost for that would be about $1.3 million. So that's about $1 million more than what we currently have. And that's to create the planning and construction documents and to initiate permitting for this project. So that would require about $1 million more from Restore. The second option is to stop the project now and to modify the deliverables so that the final deliverable is the programming document that Caldwell has produced. The third option that I think...
At what price? That's at the $100,000 level?
Correct.
Okay.
The third option that I believe Charlene's group is proposing today is to allow them to use the $265,000 from the original grant agreement to get one step further in the process, which is schematic design and more detailed cost estimates. This would still require a modification of deliverables, so we would still need to modify the MYIP and the grant agreement, but I believe their request today is to allow them that additional step in the process. They feel that it would help their fundraising efforts moving forward if they were allowed to get to the schematic design phase. So their proposal is not for full design, and it would still require the modifications we discussed on Monday, but it would allow them to pull down the remaining $165 from that original grant agreement.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Peach?
Yeah, I think if I understand correctly, we would stop short of the 100% design. It would allow them almost, I don't want to use the term marketing, but more detail to do the fundraising efforts of the already allocated 265. So for another 165, they'll take this document and take it just a step or two further, which could assist them, I believe, in greatly assist them is probably a better statement in trying to raise funds. So I think it's a reasonable request. I'll yield to my fellow commissioners.
Commissioner Lynch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've supported this project since the local Restore Council was considering it. However, I went back and looked at the April 2018 meeting where we had 3 presentations, 3 different firms that were vying for this proposal. Our grant amount was $265,000. Everyone knew that. All 3 firms were asked what that would result in, and the answer was site selection, design, permitting cost, and a set of construction documents that were bid ready, a bid package we could go out to construction with. Now, we were told Monday that to get to that point would cost another $1 million on top of the 265. So the deliverables are that if we were to revise the deliverables to just go to schematics, we are worlds apart from what we thought we were going to get a year ago. Right now, we have the design package that has been prepared and is well put together, well presented document that can be used for future planning and fundraising. If they are able to come up with the $3.5 million or $5.5 million, we can always revisit pulling this project back into the MYIP in a future year. Our MYIP is going to be around for a long time, more than a decade into the future. So we can always revisit this. But I don't know if we could even modify our deliverables to say, okay, we want this to tell Treasury we want to spend the same 265, but our deliverables are such an order of magnitude below what we originally presented in the grant to Treasury. So for those reasons, that's why I support going ahead. We've spent $100,000. We have the design document in hand. Modify our deliverables with Treasury, see if that flies. If it doesn't fly with Treasury and we have to pay back the grant, we're paying back $100,000. If we move forward and try to modify the deliverables to the 265 point, then we could be paying back $265,000 to restore. So I think we have that design document in hand. I would support staying with that and utilizing that as we plan and move forward. Again, I don't think this would affect the MOU. We're not doing anything with that property. That's still in place. So the property's still set aside. In the event that funding is secured, then we can move forward. We're just not digging a bigger hole.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyncher. Commissioner Cole?
Commissioner Lyncher, thank you very much for that explanation, but it brings a question to mind. One, I'm total agreement with the site stays where it's at. I like you and Commissioner Salter, we've always been very supportive of this. Great idea, and I'm glad you put it into the terms you did. So my question comes up that if we contracted with these people for this deliverable, what legal means do we have, one, of paying them for what they've done already because they haven't completed what I see as a contract to give us the plans? So if they've contracted, and Lane or Roy, I guess Roy can answer this, we've got a contract with them to deliver this much for this much money, and they've not delivered, why do we even owe them $100,000? We shouldn't owe them a dime until they deliver everything we expected, and then we'll pay them the $265, whether we pay it or, well, at that point, we've met the agreement with Federal Treasury, and the Edge has what they want, and these people that have stood in front of us and said, we're the guys to do it for you, have done what they said they were going to do. So how are they off the hook, I guess is my question.
Well, I haven't reviewed that contract.
When Caldwell was selected as the architect, there were a lot of remaining questions related to the relationship between the county and Marine Edge. At that point, we weren't entirely sure how big Marine Edge wanted the facility to be. There were many unknowns. We did not have the MOU in place. Marine Edge didn't have a business plan. Staff recognized that, and we were very concerned with executing a full design contract and starting to spend design dollars without answers to those questions. So staff brought to the board, a proposal for contracting with Caldwell for programming or pre-design phase. And as a part of that, we were able to identify how exhibits play into the design, at what point and what is needed for exhibits. All of these questions that we didn't know the answer to when we started down this road. So the existing contract with Caldwell is for programming services only, and they have fulfilled that contract. They have fulfilled the deliverables of that contract. We did not contract with them for the design and production of construction documents and the other phases. It was staff's assessment at that time that it was a more prudent approach, step forward, to break this up and figure out where we were heading, how much it was going to cost to get there, and to bring that back to you all to make sure we were heading in a direction that was consistent with what the board wanted. So our existing contract is only for, I think it's $100,575,000, and they have fulfilled the requirements of that contract.
Okay, was that change brought to the board? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, if they fulfilled their contract, I agree with Commissioner Lyncher at this point.
Thank you. Any further comments from fellow board members? I believe, yes. Just hit the button. There we go.
Thank you. Be read. Can you hear me? Yes. Are you willing to give money back to the Treasury? And if you are, do you realize how bad that would look for Santa Rosa County?
Charlene, if we give money back to the Treasury, it goes back into our restore component dollars. It goes back to our local restore dollars. So the county would be moving funds from a county source, the general fund, as an example, to the county's direct component. It would be refunding, it would be paying back the county's restore bank account, in essence. So
Okay.
that money would then be available again for the county to use. We wouldn't be sending that money to Treasury.
Okay, thanks for
and
clarifying.
relinquishing it.
If you support this project and understand that our nonprofit is confident in raising $3.5 million for exhibits and another $2 million in endowment, I ask that you allow those additional documents and funding for the 265. Thanks.
Thank you. Just the only comments I have on it are, I know it is very inspirational to hear that obviously the board is committed to moving forward with the segment that had been identified for, at least since it was brought to me from the beginning, of a private fundraising aspect. With that, I know we have obviously at least one representative from Caldwell here today, and I remember the presentation, and y'all definitely wowed it. And even Monday, I can tell that Caldwell's clearly passionate about the project. Obviously, there's a financial incentive involved, but still I believe a true passion for it. There would be nothing that would preclude Caldwell from partnering with you, whether it be on the fundraising effort or even in the donation of services to sort of help with that. I know one strong thing that led to Caldwell getting that, procuring that contract, was even during the presentation, your board had stated out of those firms that Caldwell was the one y'all preferred. So I would sort of expect probably the goodwill of Caldwell would be to help y'all down that road of fundraising. And even as Commissioner Lyncher stated before, as the board of directors with the Discovery Center starts that fundraising process, and so that, obviously that's clearly going to take time when we're talking about several $1 million, we could go back and revisit this and reallocate dollars. But I think that honestly goes a long way to the board, especially with other things that I've dealt with in the 2.5 years I've been here, of when folks can give that sort of matching funding. So I'm encouraged to hear that. That's sort of my free poke at Caldwell for you there is, you got the contract because they said you were the firm, they recommended you. And so I would just tell you to passionately plead with them, just as you have for us, that they might be willing to donate some of that service. But and I've also looked forward to hearing from you. I know we spoke the other day outside of the meeting about the possibilities of some county assets that are already there to help you expand the current facility that wouldn't be these great things. But with that, if there's no further comment from board or members of the public, yes, sir.
One other thing that you might want to consider, that regardless of your decision today, you're required to go through a 45-day comment period to modify the MYIP. That opens up comments from the public. And then you have to reply to those comments and satisfy them for Treasury's approval to move that thing forward, and you're up against a deadline. So that's something you need to consider, because if you don't get approval and modify that by the deadline, and Erica can probably speak much better to this than I can, but my understanding is that you might run into a difficulty with Treasury. And then I don't know what that jeopardizes. I
That's
just
why
wanted to
we're
bring that
doing
up.
this whole process. We know we have to go through the revision anyway, because we're not going to be able to provide the deliverables that the grant called for under the contracted amount.
But it still opens up
We
a
still have
comment
to.
period.
Absolutely, either way, whether we fund the 265, or pull the project completely, or agree to repay it, or change it to where it's 1.3 million, so we get what we originally had in the grant. Either way, either of those options, any option we choose, we have to go through the 45-day comment period. We understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further comments or questions from fellow commissioners, I'll recommend moving item number 1 for approval as stated in the current agenda without objection. Hearing none, that item's passed. Item number 2 is the settlement agreement. This is for discussion and review of settlement agreement for the Cohart flood claim. I will defer to Roy. I see your light on.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Litigation Council has recommended that we approve the settlement of this case for the sum of $15,000. A little bit of background, the plaintiffs originally sought $65,000. We've agreed, or subject to your approval, the recommendation is to settle it for $15,000. The decision of whether to settle a case is always up to the client. You have my recommendation and you have litigation counsel's recommendation. The decision is based purely on the economics involved in the resolution of the claim. We do not, the Santa Rosa County is not admitting any type of liability whatsoever, and the provisions of the settlement agreement are not admissible in any other proceeding. This is based on the cost of resolving this claim. We do not find that the claim has any merit, frankly, but we have a situation where an expert witness has been obtained and an opinion supporting the claimant. We would have to address that by an expert witness testimony countervailing that. The flood claims are excluded from our insurance policy, so we're on the hook for the attorney fees for our litigation counsel. This is a matter of resolving the claim for what we feel is an appropriate amount based upon what we would anticipate expending to litigate it.
Thank you, Roy. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The other day, I was quite vocal against settling this way, and after having discussed this with the county attorney and county administrator and visiting the location, checking out quite a few things, because I feel like probably the rest of you guys do. I don't like to roll over on something like this, but understanding it better now, and hopefully everybody out there understands we're not just going to throw in the towel every chance we get, and the fact that this lets Public Works off the hook because there is no blame or responsibility. I'll keep my mouth shut after this.
All right. If there's no further comment or questions on this item, we'll recommend moving it for approval without objection. Hearing none, it's approved. Item number 3 is a new item, discussion of declaration as surplus property items from Santa Rosa County Property Appraiser as recommended by the Clerk of Courts. Do we have any questions or comments on this item from my fellow commissioners or any members of the public? Hearing none, I recommend that for approval without objection. Hearing none, the item's approved. Item number 4 is a meeting list. As published there, you'll see quite a few meetings going through the remainder of the month as on the agenda. Are there any questions or comments from any board members or members of the public concerning the meeting list? Hearing none, I recommend that for approval without objection. Hearing none, the item is approved. That concludes the administrative report. We have one item on the engineer's report. I'll defer to Roger. This is for the Navarre Beach Pier renovation project.
The item is the Navarre Beach Pier renovation, discussion of those bids. After reviewing the bids, it's staff's recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners reject those bids and re-advertise.
All right, do we have any questions or concerns from any board members and members of the public? Yes, sir, good morning.
Good morning, Jerry Cooey, 6049 Arnie's Way. It was a little unclear. Could you, Roger, could you give the scope? We were replacing decking, that was the bid, for the handicap ramp up, the emergency ramp, and then the decking around the buildings that's there? Or was it the whole pier? Could you?
It was everything you described, including the whole pier.
All the way to the end?
Correct, sir.
And I'm guessing that $1 million seemed a little high? Is that why we're rejecting?
No, that is not totally. It is higher than we engineers estimate, but there are a lot of factors going on in the Northwest Florida that has affected those bids as well as others.
Right. So this is a complete rebid. You're putting it out again and see what happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we could get a crew together and nail some boards down if you need. But over $1 million seemed a little high. I mean, the whole pier cost $12 million, end to end. You know, that seemed incredibly high. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Peach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry, I've been working and talking with them on this and how we're going to execute that. Also, being an engineer, if we wanted to close the entire pier and shut it down to do the redecking, there's impacts to that. So the way they have the request structured is to keep the pier in operation while this project's going on under some time constraints, so we don't impact, you know, the peak seasons and all the events going on the pier. So that adds to the cost of projects as well when you restrict a contractor like that. I just wanted to get that out there for folks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Always good to have an engineer and an attorney on the board. So, all right. If there's no further questions or comments, I'd recommend that we approve the engineer's recommendation of rejecting all bids for this. I'll do so without objection. Hearing none, that item is approved to reject all the bids, and they can go back out for the procurement process. We have no items under the Public Services Committee or the Public Works Committee. Commissioner Peach is also off the hook with the Budget and Finance Committee. Therefore, that takes us to public forum, always an exciting part of the meeting. If we have any members of the public here today, as Mr. Cooey comes up, that would like to speak after he's done, just please prepare yourself, and when you come up to the podium, just please be cognizant to remind our clerk there for your name and address so she can get on the record. Thank you. Good morning.
First item, I noticed that there was no recommendation. Could I have a little background on the United Way property?
I think
there was no it was listed as no recommendation.
On Monday, there was a lot of discussion. The proposal that was brought forward from Economic Development and supported by administration was to purchase the United Way building right out here on Highway 90 and the warehouse behind it, along with the 5 acres that it sits on, and the Whiting Furniture Building together to allow additional space for county expansion, to try and get out of some warehouse space that we're renting out in town, and to develop a business incubator in line with our economic development strategic plan. The board had a lot of questions on Monday regarding some of the details of that, and we're still researching those as far as getting those questions answered. And if we get everything answered and satisfactorily answered, we could bring it back to the board at some point in the future. But right now, we are not going to pursue that purchase.
Okay, very well. I need to talk about Woodbine Road for just a minute, and we all recognize it's a problem. My family became a victim of Woodbine Road on Monday. Someone merged over and scratched up my very pretty car. But what I'm wondering is we just had a tremendous increase in emergency fire tax. And here's my concern that I put before the board and Commissioner Parker, since that's your district, I'm kind of asking you to see what went wrong here. I certainly don't mind flagging traffic. However, when you have two cars disabled on Woodbine in a major thoroughfare, where a call is made to 911 for assistance, there was an interim period of some close to 50 minutes before a state trooper actually got there to give clearance to move the cars. It became a very dangerous situation. Once again, I don't mind flagging traffic. I've been known to be in the middle of the road a few times myself. But we didn't need a fire truck, but we needed something with flashing lights on it. It became very dangerous there. A wonderful citizen happened to stop and saw the danger in it, parked behind us, put her flashers on, and then I got behind her because people wasn't paying attention it was right there by the car wash, so it was right as people are coming off of Highway 90 onto Woodbine. I just, a vehicle of some sort with flashing lights would have been nice if it would have gotten there. Like I said, it wasn't a horrible, there wasn't fluid dripping and all that kind of stuff. However, we are paying a pretty good sum of money, and that is a danger spot, no doubt about it. I mean, there's 15 or 20 cars that I'm flagging at that they finally make eye contact with me and move over. So if you would find out, I'd appreciate it.
Jerry?
My final item is the Board of County Commissioners, as you have decided to have a special election for a 1-cent sales tax. And that is certainly your prerogative. I will tell you that I rise in opposition of having a special election, which is going to cost over $220,000, or give or take a few pennies. I rise in opposition of any additional taxes. You double the gas tax, you got a 1/2-cent sales tax, property values are going up, you're collecting more in that. But you've made that decision. I rise in opposition against it, and the voters will decide. But each and every time that the Board of County Commissioners tries to raise our taxes, I feel an obligation to remind you of what the state statutes say. The state statutes say that once it becomes an item on the ballot, no taxpayer funds, no resources by said county can be used for or against any ballot item. In the last tax election that we had, the county went so far as to put out some handouts that were taxpayer-owned pieces of paper, and it took resources to put them together, and it was most assuredly in favor of the sales tax. This is something I'm very passionate about. I think you guys know I'm passionate about it, and I'm going to follow this to make sure that the county does not use the computer, the employees, the paper, or direct taxpayer funds, because it's now a matter of the people. Certainly as individuals, you can have your town halls and you can talk to folks. It's America, and you can let them know what you think. Resources of the county is not supposed to be used for that, and I would appreciate it if you honor that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jerry. Always appreciate hearing from you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Come on up here. Thank you for being patient with us today.
Is this your lady?
Like a good church service when you can rest your eyelids there, ain't it?
Yeah.
All right. If you would just tell your name and address for the record.
My name is Jan Purcell. I live in Navarre on Wind Trace Road North. I've talked to a couple of you gentlemen about help. I live at the dead end, and there's some confusion of who owns the right-of-way for Wind Trace and the little, what I call an alley, easement, whatever. Help me, I'm going to stumble around here. And I'm left with a mud puddle. My yard is still about this deep in water. It was that deep after the second day of rain. It's a private road, but the easements are full, the alley is full, and it's a mud puddle. And There's just confusion, and I don't want to be left out there. I had the use of that little easement alley for about 5 years, and I gave it back. I was asked to relinquish it. I don't have the big dogs anymore. So we've re-fenced it, and now the big trucks can come through there. We've had so much building on our street. We have a lot of little starter homes, $220,000 starter homes. And the last 3 are going in across from me, and there's lots of traffic, lots of water's coming off those properties that were cleared. It was like a jungle for 20-some years. And now I'm getting all the water. And I just don't want to be left below water and those houses be concreted in, driveway sodded, and then I'm getting all their water. And I just need some help. I even tried there for a couple years to build my own little retaining pond. I forget who I talked to here with you guys, but, well, Public Works, and ask them for help. But with a private road, what are you going to do? But there's over $500,000 worth of houses going in across from me, and I'm going to get their water.
Are they going in on your road or a different road?
Pardon?
Those houses being built, or are they being built on your road?
Lynn Trace, I live at the dead end, and we've had, I don't know, a good dozen put in, nice additions to our little...
On that road?
On that road. The last 3 are going in across from me. They're at the dead end. And as I said, with all the rain that we've had, I once again am below water.
Is it a dirt road?
No, we're paved. We're
Okay.
paved, yeah, skimmed, paved, yeah.
So you have water in the roadway?
In the ditches, the right-of-way ditches, there's no culverts.
Okay.
And what I took to be an alley actually is owned, if I understand what I was told, it's actually owned by whoever owns the right-of-way and what connects to the street behind us.
Okay.
And it's dirt and mud, and it's like, if I had a good herd of pigs, they'd love it.
Okay.
It's that nasty.
Stephen, are you familiar, is this a private road?
It is a private road. Ms. Purcell and I talked at length on the phone. It's nice to meet you in person.
Oh, nice to meet you, sir.
And it is a private road. The property appraiser shows it being owned as by a private individual out of state. And what she's describing is that the right-of-way that contains the paved road goes up in dead ends just past her property. And then there is a stub out that turns and runs along her northern property line to the east that connects to an unimproved right-of-way that is the extension of a road called Mariposa.
I believe it is, yeah.
So it's connects to an unimproved roadway, and the gentleman building the homes has cleared this alleyway and even out onto the public parcel that is unimproved to have a secondary access or northern access onto Windtrace North. And, I presume he's using it at some point for construction traffic, but...
Right, heavy equipment.
But it's also, we don't maintain this right-of-way parcel that he's cleared or that parcel that's connected to the private road. And so Public Works has been unable to offer assistance to Ms. Purcell.
Okay. Commissioner Peach, you got a question? If not, I can clearly tell you about the pains of living on a private road.
Yeah, I've talked with Ms. Purcell, and I've been on this road a couple of times. Ms. Purcell's not the first one. It is listed as private, someone in Phoenix, Maryland. But Stephen, as I look at that other piece of property, there's no data on Mariposa Street or anything. Is that ours or in the property appraiser's site, that site that he's using to access on the Paloma?
The property appraiser site shows the right-of-way just being Mariposa Street with no ownership, which is generally typical of it being public. But that would take a title search, I believe, to properly identify who the owner of that parcel is.
Okay, because, if he's using, now that I look at it with that Paloma and that Mariposa, if he's using that, and we don't know who owns that, that could be an issue. But yeah, that whole road is private. There's been some issues. I've asked Chris from our code enforcement. He's been down there and looked at that. I got some questions into the building department to make sure the builder is adhering to the requirements when he's building the homes. I have not heard back from her yet.
Right, and I just don't want to wait until it's concreted in and,
Yep.
nothing can be done.
But, once I hear back from Ms. Royals and the building department, because they're the ones that'll monitor that construction, but now I have I'll get with Mr. Brown and kind of ask if this guy's using that to cut over to Mariposa and there's no data on the road or anything, is he doing that correctly? I don't want to say legally, but correctly, using that access around your property there at the end.
Well, he had asked me to move my fence, which he had been kind enough to let me use for like 5 years to keep my dogs in. And so I moved it, but the lady across the way, on the other side of that, has not moved hers, and she's got 20 feet of whatever that is, stub out or whatever you call that, unimproved. And I just feel sort of put upon. There's over $500,000 worth of houses going in, and here I am, underwater.
So I will continue to stay in touch with you. I'll get with Ms. Royals, and I'll also get with Mr. Brown and check that other piece of, not the one on Wind Trace, but the stub out he's cutting through to go over to Mariposa to make sure.
I have a question. If since it's sort of an unknown category, how do I put it? If it's not found to be owned, not going to be improved, can I just block it back off again?
I would tell you from personal experience to going against the good sound advice of my father-in-law. I built a house on a private road, and I have dealt with that. I still own the home, don't live there, but I would encourage you, and I feel like the best thing I could do as a county commissioner when you start getting those questions is to please seek out a good real estate attorney, pay him for a consultation, and I've had to do that myself, and that way you can explore those questions that I don't think legally any of us would be prepared to answer, because there would be some research behind that and a lot of this what ifs. So if you could get with them, and they could possibly help you with not only issues such as that, but also maybe drafting a road maintenance agreement or stormwater agreements with some of your neighbors and seeing if they would kick in, or even through the MSBU process. But I am sure that Commissioner Peach will obviously, as he said, studiously work on this. But when it starts getting into private land use matters and all, I think we probably would just try to recommend that you refer to an attorney on that, about your rights on that.
Okay.
All right.
Your advice is never buy on a private road?
No, I'm not saying that. It's just there are some challenges with it, and that is why this board and their wisdom long before I came passed an ordinance. Now any real estate transaction in the county, folks have to sign a letter stating they understand they're either on a private road or a publicly maintained road.
I saw that.
And I tell you, so now, we hear folks and they come up, and that's why this board tried to get in front of that. So I'm just sharing with you that I truly understand some of the encumbrances that come with that. But I appreciate you for coming today,
Well, thank
and I
you.
know that Commissioner Peach will work with you as hard as he can.
I have one question about that, signing that you realize it's a private road and all the ramifications of it. I saw one couple that had bought a bungalow down middle of the road, and they didn't sign it. They refused to sign it, I guess knowing more about it than I do, the ramifications of it. But yet, they're the ones having the problems now, in the middle of the road, middle of the, length of the road. So you begin to wonder, it must not mean much if they didn't sign it, nobody made them sign it, or...
I don't know, you could speak with our attorney or an attorney offline about that. Again, I know I could deed you property right now and you could go record it without doing that, but I've never seen a title company do a transaction in this county without one, so.
And we've had our property 20 years, and I don't remember ever signing anything.
Yeah, I don't think it was in effect back then. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for hearing me. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Peach will get with you. Anybody else that has any questions or comments for the board? Good morning. Just please remember to give this young lady your name and address for the
Willard
record.
Courtney, 4641 Geiger Road, Milton, Florida, 32583. I'd like to ask my county commissioner where Yellow River Ranch is.
Go Hickory Hammock Road, almost to 87, to the, up there where the Tom Thumb is. It's to there's 2 or 3 roads that turn south from there, and it's at the end of those roads. Just before really it drops down into Yellow River bottom down in there, so.
In another flood zone.
No, it's.
Well, I know you'll say no, but.
It can, if it floods, we're all in trouble.
Well,
Because Yellow River would be about 100 feet deep at that point.
I don't know where it is, so I can't make many comments on it.
You know where Elvis Presley is? Elvis Presley Road? It's at the end of that. It's the old E.H. Pullum property, portion of that.
Oh, yeah, I know where the Pullum property was.
That's the property.
That's probably the one that's selling it to the people. Okay, that's fine. I would like to say this, county commissioners, if you think your 1% sale tax is going to apply, you've got another thing coming. Everyone I've talked to, every single person, I have not talked to one person yet that said they'll vote for it. So good luck with that. Another thing, you got 104 houses going in there, 186 going in on Woodbine, and yet your county commissioners are against impact fees. I don't understand why. You would gain millions of dollars with these houses going in. That would help you pave these roads. And I don't understand why, I moved in years ago, I paid my impact fee. Why doesn't everybody else pay an impact fee? And another thing, I truly believe a county commissioner on the board today, and I'm probably wrong, Mr. Lane Lyncher could probably tell me, but I feel that if you're a realtor and you got a bunch of houses coming in, you should recuse yourself from voting on that particular item. And I don't know, I truly feel today, another thing, Mr. Peach's area, there's some still here, but everybody that comes from Navarre gets up and leaves after their little speech on what we need in Navarre. I stay here for the whole thing because I want to know what's going on in the county, not Navarre. And that seems like that's the only thing they're for, is Navarre. Well, I brought up Pond Creek, that never flew, and I don't think it's going to fly. The next thing is going to be the one that got all the people canoeing down and everything else. It's going to get where you can't get in it. People, I don't think the county commissioners of today are listening to the people that I've heard come up here and talk to you, and you're not listening to the people. That's the reason you don't have more people here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that hasn't spoken today? Always good to see you, Mr. Jorgensen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, I want to thank you for your continued recognition of the importance of the wastewater treatment plant sited in the East Milton Industrial Park and the positive economic and environmental aspects of that project, which will serve this portion of Santa Rosa County in the future. I appreciate your diligence, your research, your staff's commitment and their time, and all that you do in partnership with the City of Milton and the positive aspects of our relationship over time. Thank you much.
Thank you. Always appreciate a visit from y'all. Anybody else that hasn't already spoken that has an item to come before the board today? All right, hearing none, thank you again for coming. The meeting's adjourned.